So, what I'm going to do today is talk about bringing business agility in pharma companies, and not about IT or software in their clinical trials, which is important for your medicine and vaccine release. So there's no IT, there's no software, there's no product in my story today. It's going to be a monologue. So if you get bored, stop me, ask questions. This pack doesn't have any agile games or anything. I could not build any games around it. So I thought if you ask me questions, if you think there's something doesn't sound right, ask questions, and we can make it interactive. I'll share what happened, and you can tell me you did wrong. All right, so a bit about me. My name's Rohit Ratan. I am an Indian based in Leeds. I live with my family, wife and two lovely boys. And I've worked as coach, business leadership coach, and these days I work as a management consultant, consulting organizations around bringing business agility using lean principles. Agile is something which they don't like. And part of the story is also talking about the challenge that we have faced around how people perceive Agile in an organization. So throughout my 20 plus years of journey, I did collect a lot of badges. So I'm not a badge collector, but it looks good. So yeah, I'm an IC Agile trainer. I teach about Agile coaching, facilitation, enterprise coaching and stuff. I did that, love it and stuff. So, but what am I gonna do today is talk about our journey. When I say our journey, it's not just me as an individual who was coaching this organization. We were a team of about 14 coaches at our peak, but we started small, about 3-4 coaches, and then we built our team. And it's a journey that we started with our client with very specific goals, and very typical to any organization who's starting their journey around thinking we'll bring agility within the organization. They say, go and get my team more agile. So we started working with their teams rather than working with the leaders. But we knew that leaders we can't let go of the leaders. So we, throughout the story, you'll see how we kept pulling them and made them accountable. So in the journey, we also I'm gonna share our challenges that we faced, the issues that we faced. But the key thing that I would like you all to take away is how we approach the problem, how we looked at the problem and tried and took steps to help our client move forward, think beyond what was visible to them. And when I say we're working with the clinical trials team, they are research and development teams. They're composed of scientists, PhD holders. They know about experimentation. They know about agility. What could we have taught them better, right? So we worked with lab managers, technicians. They do experiments day in, day out, and we were talking to them about experiments. So that was the fun thing, explaining experiments to them. And we didn't understand anything about clinical trials. What's phase 1, what's phase 2, what's phase 3? We never understood that. So we were a team of 3 to 4 people who were from software, agile coaching and stuff. And but we had life sciences expert in our organization who helped us understand what clinical trials mean, what it entails, and all that stuff. So throughout the journey, the journey started post-COVID, almost at the very end of COVID, about 2021. And our client, a big pharma company, missed out on making money out of COVID vaccine. They didn't release any COVID vaccine by the time their competitors did. There was a leadership change, new leaders came in, and they said, we need to be working in a different way, we need to do something different, we need to be agile. And they came up with some goals, and so when we were called in, another big consulting company worked before us, and they brought their own playbook, a very fixed playbook, which when we started talking to the people within the study teams who really conduct these experiments, they hated the word Scrum, they hated the word Agile. because of the consulting company which came with a playbook of this is how you should work. You should have a backlog. You should create user stories in this format. You should create acceptance criteria. And the scientists were thinking, what's user story? How can I write that you have to mix this much chemical with this much chemical, and what's the acceptance criteria? It's all an experiment. Acceptance criteria will be generated when we get the result of the first experiment, and then we move forward from there. So there was a bit of resistance around using the word agile, and we understood that very, very quickly. The fun thing was we stopped using the word agile, scrum. We started using lean, and it stick to them because they come with a mindset of operational stuff, and it was good. We talked about continuous improvement. We talked about Kaizen, and they were hooked on to that. Experimentation was a key word because they used to do experiments. So these were the goals that we were given. Now for us, we didn't understand what patient centricity means. We didn't, customer centricity for a product. We know we want to go to the customer, we understand. But there are so many patients. How can we help someone? How can we get people to understand what patient wants, right? That's a tough thing. But when we started talking to the people, the study teams, the motivation itself was to be patient-centric, to resolve the issues that the patients are facing, and that was the motivation for them to do things differently. So we realized this is the motivation, and we should, bring it to life. Why patients are important? Why is their work important for the patients? And build that connection. So we realized that motivation, and we throughout our journey we tried to build that connection with them, with communication, with engaging with them. So a lot of things that we were asked to do. Obviously, being first to the market, losing out in the COVID market. Regulatory was one of the biggest concern. Governance, it's a regulated environment. Clinical trials, anything goes wrong, you are going to be fined millions. Right? So this was a key concern, bringing a new way of working without disturbing governance and regulatory. So we were set this goals, and the leaders said, okay, we want our study teams to start, you to start working with our study teams and make them agile, right? Now, there are, at a given time, 150 plus about 200 studies going on. So there are about 200 study teams in this pharma company. And then across pharma companies, you'll find 100 plus study teams working on different studies at a different stages or different phases. Now, because of COVID, all of us understand how difficult it is to release or launch a vaccine or a medicine in the market. It can go from 12 years to 18 years. That's the average life cycle. COVID vaccine was a different thing because there was a lot of different things that happened behind the scene in terms of supply chain, in terms of bringing biostatistics into life, clinical pharmacology into life. I didn't know any of this before when I joined this work. So we were set these goals, and we said, okay, let's sit down, let's think about what we can do. 4 of us. We didn't understand clinical trials. So we said we can try and focus on what we can bring in. So first thing, we wanted to understand our client first of all. So we went and started building the trust, tried to understand what they say, their jargons, their vocabulary, and be empathetic, build that trust. We don't know what we don't know. And we can't say, we are expert in and we're going to help you build something new. We can't, because we don't know how they are working. So first few weeks went into going and talking to lots and lots of different people, lab technicians, lab managers, supply chain managers, IT managers. IT managers, not the software ones. IT equipment managers, data managers, a lot of different departments, and we kept going out and talking to people and trying to understand what's going on. And in the process, we tried to understand what entails this clinical trial. Why are people so obsessed? Why is why does it take so long? Why does it take so long to do something like this, right? We started building that trust, and in process, we also, we did interview a lot of leadership team members, tried to understand what they do, how they prioritize things, decision making, governance, advisory, and all that stuff. Basically, the whole organizational structure. We were trying to build that. So we picked up different departments within the organization. Within the clinical trial itself, there are different teams or different departments. Now, when I say teams, each department or each team can be about 1,000 to 2,000 people, right? And throughout the whole clinical trial, the teams are not consistent. They don't need to be throughout the whole life cycle of the clinical trial. They'll come, they'll deliver, and they'll move on. But there is a core team that stays, who takes the decision, who moves on and takes that information and brings it to the next person or next team. So we were not working with one small software team of 10 people. At a given time, there would be about 30 to 40 people working on that time. And then 20 of them might not be required next week, and maybe 30 more will join in next week to start working on that. So it's very sequential. It's very sequential. So we identified a lot of handovers. We identified a lot of IT systems that were created, which do not talk to each other. Very important, the organization itself had grown organically. So some were using SAP-based systems, some were using homegrown systems, some had another system, and nobody had output from one going into the next. There was a manual intervention, and then they would change things and upload it in their system. A lot of handovers. So what we tried to think, as I said, we brought in the lean concept of visualizing the whole process. Now, visualizing the whole process itself was tough. So we said we'll go in a smaller department, clinical life sciences labs department, and then there was another department that we picked up. So two of us, we went into two different departments to see how we can help them out. So we started using value stream mapping, focused on identifying bottlenecks in those small areas. Now the key problem that we said was, even if we change things, the bottlenecks, the impact of a bigger 12 years to 18 years will not be here. By the time that small 5-minute change or a 10-minute change makes an impact. So we had to think, I would say, out of the box. How can we change things which will help this small group of people think differently and do things differently? And we can't do that for them. We started talking about who's the decision maker throughout the process, throughout 12 to 18 years. Who's going to take decision? So the concept of decision maker was given to one person, the study delivery lead. But then that person was not the best person to take decision in other specific areas. So we started building roles and responsibility stuff. And then as we were building this, we realized it's not just going to be useful if we build this operating model just for the study teams and then let them run with it. They can't be more agile by doing that. So there was some thought leadership that we did. We designed a scaled up model for changing the operating model. So the whole journey did not go as per our plan of scaling up at leadership level, but we did try to implement a new ways of working at study team level. So I'll talk about that as well. So what the key areas of what we thought of enabling was obviously leadership, people, culture, governance, ways of working, and bringing a structure. So 6 key enablers that we thought we'll focus on. So we brought this, we did a lot of different things. Now I can't talk about all of them, but what we did was we'll focus on key areas of designing a new operating model, leadership development, and bringing a continuous culture and capability development. We did support in OKRs, change management, and all that stuff throughout the life cycle, but it's going to be another 1-hour discussion. So what we did was, I said, we looked beyond what we were told to do. So as I said, we 4 of us, when we started, we had idea of product development, but we never understood the clinical trial phases and stuff. So we were, as we kept discussing, we were also brainstorming, how do we relate our work to this world? So from a product development life cycle, it starts with development, where you go and do all your research work, go and talk to clients, go on prospective clients, go and do surveys, go out to the market, basically talk to the clients, and do a lot of design thinking stuff. We said, till all 3 phases of the trials are done, it cannot be launched in any market. So it's not development. We're not going beyond development. We are just in development of product. And all of these 12 to 18 years is still developing something that might work, something that might not work. So there are clinical trials which fail after 2 rounds, 2 phases, the third phase fails. Nobody can predict it. So we were trying to think about, okay, how do we bring our product mindset and build this whole life cycle of clinical trial into a product mindset? How can we bring and get people to think of this as a product? So each clinical trial, each study team is taking a product and running with it and making sure that gets released. Now each study team, you might think, why there are more than 100 study teams? So there are study teams working on one vaccine maybe, which can be released in China, for older adults. It can be released in China for kids up to age 15. So that's another study. So, if you think from a theme, a product, a portfolio program, and then, the other study teams are really working at a big epic level. Okay? And each epic is gonna have an outcome. Yes, and each of these pharma companies are competing with other pharma companies doing the same thing. So whoever finishes their test and gets approval, they get the patent, and then they can start, releasing products to the market for certain level, certain age. So that way, we could realize, we are talking about if the chief scientist gives, we need to solve, say, COVID vaccine, we need to come up with a COVID vaccine for COVID. We have different levels where they are going to think about, okay, we need to test it for this level of people, this level of age, demographic and stuff. So that thought process, we said, oh, it sounds like product for us, right? Let's bring that idea in and let's see how we can build something around it. Now, as I said, we started working at a study level. So we said we're going to help them build their backlog. No, we don't have to do it user story. We don't have to have acceptance criteria. But the reason of building backlog was to have a visualization of where is it in the study, where is it in the study life cycle. And we said don't follow any template. You don't have to create user stories. So our backlog, when we started running pilots for 5 studies, the backlog seemed like list of tasks. But then it started creating visualization, so of where are we stuck. So things like, oh, we are waiting for approval for creating a site in Africa. So who needs to approve it? Who needs to go and push for it? What do you really need? That kind of conversation shift happened in the meetings that were happening. We didn't say you have to go for daily stand-ups. No, you don't want it, don't have it. But what do you really need? So, some said, okay, I need to have once a week call where we meet and say where are we. Some studies are at a very slower phase, so they said, okay, we need to meet fortnightly. So each study, you can't say they are same. Every study has a unique flavor to it. So what we tried to do was we tried to build guardrails and say, okay, do whatever is necessary within these guardrails and see if it works for you. This is not a fixed playbook for you. So said we started by creating backlog, and they started seeing the value of it. They started visualizing how things are progressing. Roles and responsibility, this was the toughest thing, because there was so much overlap of responsibilities across teams. Like, I don't know, what am I doing? Is this my responsibility? Is it somebody else's responsibility? If there is a risk that needs to be mitigated, you would see escalation, going to the nth level. But nobody knows who's going to work on it. What's really happening? So when we sat down with a study team, all 5 of them started building the roles and responsibility, and it evolved. So we had some guidance. We brought some of our life sciences experts and then said, okay, help us out. And this is where we started getting more coaches in, because there was more and more conversations happening at different fronts. So we built this roles and responsibility at study team. Again, guardrails. It is not supposed to be fixed. We said if in another study, if somebody, some other role needs to perform this, it gets changed. So whenever we start a study onboarding this new operating model, they have to go through these guardrails and see what roles and responsibility needs to be done by whom. Okay. We also started building some training stuff to help people understand what this new operating model would look like. So we started training. We had communities of practice created as well, so that people can come and talk to them. Like, I don't know what's happening to my role. What am I doing? And somebody would say, oh, I'm doing this in my study. So that was good to get people together. The smaller group meant more conversations. So it was good to see people were talking to each other. So we built our team charter, escalation mechanism. As I said, who needs to do what was very important. And this thing, because our goal had to meet the regulatory requirements. So we could not let go of advisory boards. We could not let go of our governance team. That's part and parcel of their ways of working. We could not. So in the operating model, we said, okay, what's our collaboration cadence? What do you need as an advisory board from a study team? So when we kick-started a study or onboarding a study in our new operating model, we sat down with a representative from the advisory board to understand what would you like to do. So we identified milestones. Again, it sounds like project, but it's important. It's important from a regulatory point of view. So we said, okay, it brings more agility because we now know when do we really need to call, whom when do we need to call, right? So we started building this shared services and all that stuff in this operating model and created all this collaboration cadence. Now, fancy words, but basically trying to understand when do we meet, what do we do in these sessions. And every study team has to define its own, all of these. So we created templates, we helped them understand how they can use it. Now for backlog, you might say, did you use a tool? At that time, we had Teams Planner to run the pilots. But after the pilots were done, the leaders started asking, okay, can we see a consolidated view? Like, no, planners can't help you with that. So another investment was done. Jira was brought in, and they started thinking of how to use Jira. Another complexity in, So now our thought process was we can, as a team of about 12, 14 coaches, we thought we're going to go slow and we can, every month we'll pick 5 to 10 study teams. That did not work out. The leaders asked us, we need to be done in a year, about 188 teams or something. So it was not possible. So we had to devise another big bang approach of how do we onboard teams, how do we build that sustenance. But throughout a period of 1 year that we worked with them, I don't think sustenance was the main point. It was just onboarding. Because the value changed after some time, because they understood we have something and it needs to be, it looks good, let's get everyone use it. Okay. So, but what we did, as I said, the thought leadership around building this drug development, we call it drug development framework. Some of you who understand scale agile framework, you say, looks similar, right? So that if you think of flight levels, it looks similar to that as well. So we have experience of doing scaled, using scaled framework. So what we try to do is try to understand how an idea of developing a vaccine or medicine starts. It starts at that level, at a portfolio management team where your chief scientist, CEO, they sit. Their scientists have identified a molecule that can solve something. So now they have prioritized based on the budgets into the next level. Now within this next level are different therapeutic areas. It can be immunology, oncology. Now these are all different. You can have different study teams working for different therapeutic areas. So what we are doing now is, so when we were almost done with our implementation at a study team level, we were presenting it back to the leadership team, saying, this, if you want to bring real agility, this is what we propose. We need to go up a level and start seeing how we do this at your level. Now, Obviously, we could not continue. There was a budget cut. So we still have a small team of coaches, a couple of them, still working in one of the therapeutic areas as a pilot to help them build this kind of structure and show them the value of it. So we're still doing it, but not at that pace. But at a study team level, we did, one of the goals that we said was we were going to build capability for people to keep on doing things as they would like to run, the way we help them build this operating model. So we developed the capability, one of the pillars for our the work that we did, and I'm going to talk about that as well. So that's one of the things that we did. Now, one of the key areas that we worked on, OKRs, communities, they were all happening as we were building this. And the key element of designing this framework was to streamline the flow. Streamline the flow of information, decision. Key area, decisions when were taken, the studies are continuing. One study delays, it impacts the other study because it's the same team that's going to work on the other study. So if one gets delayed, it impacts other. But that view is not visible to anyone, right? Because they might be working at, the visibility is still at this level. Therapeutic areas are not talking to each other, right? So a study that gets delayed in oncology impacts another team which is working in immunology, right? So they're not talking to each other at asset level. That's what we are trying to resolve at this time, building that visibility at asset level. And the next thing that we want to do, if they have budget and they let us do, is go up to that portfolio level where we help them. And at that level, Big Four works. They have their own playbook. So that's a tough zone to go. But we have idea about how do we get the idea of portfolio backlog and budgeting, and then get the flow of information and decisions down to that next level. That's going to be the next challenge, but we have not proven ourselves at that asset level. We're still continuing. My team is still continuing there. But we are out of the study team area, that the work that we were doing with them. And again, the things that we brought in, our ideas, we had team topologies. We had, we tried to identify what's the core team, what's the primary team, what's our enabler team. So we tried to build this structure, visualization of who's the core team, who's standing out but has to provide support. So we created that in our operating model. Not a typical team topology approach that we took, because it's not a software world. So we had to play around with ideas and things. We say, okay, we can use things, and then we'll customize it. That's the fun of it. You can't, if you say, oh, I've read this book, this is how it should be done. The solutions we would have not found solutions that we tried to we brought or we built. So that was the operating model that we designed. The thought leadership around it. Still working on it. Is it proven at this level? It's proven sustainability. If organization has budget, we continue and build that sustainability. But the capability that we have built, we hope it's continuing. The thing that we are trying to prove is that at an asset level in one of the therapeutic areas, hopefully it works out. The leadership sees the benefit, and we can then help them out with the other therapeutic areas. Any questions so far? Am I boring you? Yeah. Okay.
Question of I know you mentioned at the beginning that you, I think quite fairly rightly, stopped using the word agile. Part of the work with the teams and people you're working with, did you give them any training on kind of what we might mean by agile principles? Or did you go straight into, let's think about how we can improve the work?
So we went with lean principles of reducing waste. So when we started onboarding teams on the concept of lean, we created a training. We did have some Scrum related events that we said would be useful. Didn't call it daily stand-up. We said regular catch-ups. Let's call it regular catch-ups if you would like to call it. But what's the outcome of it? So we went with an outcome base. The idea was we didn't want to use Scrum-based jargons because they hated it. And it was not because of us, it was because of someone before who came before us. So yeah, we avoided it, but we taught them about lean principles, looking for waste. So simple waste that somebody said, oh, why am I on this call? So there were about, when we started running this pilot on a study call, this regular review call. There were about 50 to 60 people, and only 3 to 4 people spoke throughout the half an hour call that happened. And end of the call, we said, before you go out of this call, tell us what was your reason of joining this call. You can write it out and send it to us. And they went and they said, oh, I was there for an update. I was there because, I don't know what's going on. I was there to just get this information. So we realized you don't have to have 50 to 60 people in every call. And we tried to understand, is this a regular phenomenon? Is this something that happens every time? And it happened every time. And people were clueless of why they are there on the call. And that's the reason of, when we said we need to agree on collaboration cadence and agree on agenda and one person. So a Scrum Master role, or if you want to call a facilitator role, was assigned to, say, a lab manager who would know what's going on, who's closer to the lab stuff that's going on. So the agenda of understanding. So the lab manager will work with the study delivery lead to make sure the agenda is clear every session. So one of the biggest waste of having 50 to 60 people on a call and not knowing why are they there. Simple stuff. So we helped them to identify waste. So when we did our training, simple like, oh, what's the handover? Handover's a waste. Why are we really doing handover? Can we avoid it? There were a lot of technology disruption that was identified that leads to handover. But then there was the legacy application, upgrading it to next one or new one which can talk to across. Was a tough decision to take. So that decision was not taken, but we brought 2 teams closer to say, this is the output they are going to give. Is this what you expect? No, I need something else. I need to do some manual activity. If they do this on their side, I don't have to. We tried to identify small changes. And again, as I said, it's a long timeline. Those small changes, we're not sure if it impacted the whole timeline, but it impacted the daily work, how study teams used to work. Any other questions?
I've got. So, what about things like continuous improvement? Then, I know something I've experienced before is this whole notion, of trying to have regular retrospectives and reflect on things and keep making small changes. But then I've got embroiled in if we make any changes to the system, we need to validate that they work, and then so we can't make quick changes because it's going to take us 3 weeks to validate that the change is appropriate. So we can't really ever change anything.
Yeah. So yes, we did try to put in. So when we did our pilot, the retrospectives, we asked how soon should we talk to each other about what's different. We started fortnightly and then moved to once a month. But when we did our fortnightly call, we asked what's going on, what's different for you now. So we had people coming in, core people coming in, and talking about because when I say core people, each one of them have a 10-member, 20-member team that they will go and assign tasks to, right? So it's at a scale level that we are asking what's different for you when we are asking you to work differently, what's changing for you, what's good for you, what is not working for you. So this was not a first draft. What I'm showing you here is not the first draft. It's evolved. The templates behind it. Now this is just this looks like, oh, I know what I need to do. I need to create a template for backlog. No, it's not that simple. Study team backlog is not like a user story acceptance criteria software kind of stuff. So in the background, you can't replicate the templates that we created. You can't look at roles and responsibility template that we created and filled it up with each study team. We sat down. That was the work. That was the tough part. Telling someone, oh, I know this is what I'm doing. And asking the study delivery lead, what are the important responsibilities missing out in this document? And they would say, oh, who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? So there's a lot of background documentation. Now, this documentation was useful because that brought the conversation that was not happening before. So people will move from one study team to another study team thinking, oh, I'm going to do the same thing that I did there. But this study is different, right? They're not talking to the right people to understand what's my role here. So they are just moving from one study team to another study team, thinking I'm going to do the same thing here. So roles and responsibility conversation. Whenever we made sure that the study delivery lead will have that conversation, who's going to be the main decision maker. Every time a new team joins in, this is your responsibility, and they agree, accept, reject. Right? So that's something that we asked them to start doing. And retros, we said once a month starting, let's see what happens. But when you're starting onboarding, let's do it fortnightly so that we get to understand the pain that they're having. And then be flexible. These are guardrails. If you think you need to meet or do a retro now, do it. Take that decision. Don't wait for another month to do a retrospective. So yeah, and again, it was not a software world, so people did not have that fancy retro games or stuff. So we tried to make it simple. Keep it open. Come and talk to us. Tell us what's wrong, what's going wrong, what can we do differently. That's an open conversation. So that was something that we tried to do. Anything else before I move on? How am I doing with time? Good. So now the next thing that that was part of this whole thing was building the capability, leadership as well as at a team level. Now what we did was, as I said at the start, we focused on approach. We didn't go for this is the fixed thing that we should do. And what we did was, this was like a micro solution that we created, and we went to another pharma company who was asking us doing something similar and said, would you like us to build something similar to this? And they said, yeah, come on, help us out. So we created I moved on to another pharma company with two of my team members and developed a leadership capability development program, which we ran for our previous client. So we ran 3 waves of a leadership development program and developed their participants to run it forward. So we used to call them catalysts, and or ambassadors. Catalysts would be someone who would go back to the study teams and help them. Ambassadors would be someone who will go and start keep talking about, or raise the flag, or wave the flag. So we took this, and the goal that we were asked to achieve was to change the culture. And this one was software related. So they said, okay, come and help us build an experimental mindset where people are not scared to do things differently. So what we said, what we thought was, our approach is to understand the persona. So these were the goals that we were asked to do. We were asked build a culture. Our capability development program does that. They said, can you help change mindset? We said we can. Our program does that. So what we really did was we built. This is one of the pictures that we had, or the work that we did. It was all remote. So we had teams from UK, a couple of locations in Europe, US, Mexico, and India. So we did this regular catch-ups where we said, okay, can you design an experiment? Experiment can be anything to change something on what you're working on that can help you do things better. Now, people came up with ideas, but then how do I take this forward? So our program that we created was not just a 6 weeks training program. We said, okay, 1 day training. We'll then do our community call. We'll do our coaching and mentoring calls. We'll try and so we had focused calls on building an experiment idea to implementation plan. So by the end of 6 weeks, and what we did was we got the leaders, senior leaders, the head of departments in the calls where people were talking about the experiments and the value. So we tried to define, if you're thinking of any experiment, where is it going to impact? How is it going to enable something? Right? Start thinking from that perspective, the value of it. And when they started presenting it, the ask was, what's stopping you to really work on it? I need some time, I need some more people who have knowledge on it. And the leaders there, we said, okay, who can help? Who can help you? And as this was supported by the leadership team, people, some of them had better ideas where the leader said, okay, we would like to work on this. We would like you to work on it. So by the time of end of 6 weeks, we had 70 plus ideas, out of which 30 to 35 had some implementation plan and approval from the leadership. Change of mindset, not the team working. Leadership is also accountable to make sure things are changing. So yeah, this was fun. This was fun where people started thinking of let's do things differently. So how did we approach this? Identifying the persona. Now, in this organization, we really had Scrum Masters, we really had product owners, business analysts, program managers. But then we said, we can't build a program around a Scrum Master skill. We can't build a program. That's not going to be experimental mindset, right? So we're going to think beyond role. We're going to build role agnostic, skill based. What technique should you learn to identify problems in your space? What skills do you need to evolve your idea into a plan? Design thinking concepts. We ran sessions on psychological safety. How do you build it? If you have an idea and just implement it, teams are not going to just like it, right? How do you build that safety where people say, yeah, I know, I think this looks good. Let's try and implement it together. So we tried to understand the persona. We designed based on the need, not based on the roles. That's what we were told. These are the people who are going to participate. And we said, okay, we know the persona, but what do they really need is a role agnostic training and hand-holding, coaching, and mentoring. And then we facilitated, and then we worked on participant development. Now, we had about 60 plus participants across the world. Not all of them came to our coaching sessions or one-to-one coaching sessions, but whoever came, they were able to design experiments to an implementation plan. So it was not enforced, but it was more outcome-based. So in a 6-week cycle, if I have 35 experiments that people would like to go and implement, that was a success factor for us, that we agreed at the very start. That was one of our measuring criteria of our success of engagement. And throughout this, we helped build the capability within the organization to run these sessions again, be open for feedback. So we kept asking for feedback. And some of the coaches who worked with us from the organization, they were like, we never asked for feedback. We never tell people, it was more like project management for them. Like we'll tell people what to do things rather than asking what we can do together. So this was a success. When we left, we left with a group of people who could run these sessions, programs later, though we thought we can help them become a better coach. But that's a journey which we can't influence just in few weeks. But we did try to give them feedback that how they should act, what kind of, what powerful questions would look like. We left with giving them a toolkit, which was a big list of techniques or ideas of how they can evolve experiments or build experiments and really work on it. Obviously, the training material stayed with them so they can continue. And the idea of building experimental mindset was, we saw the change. The first session was like, nah, we don't know what can change for us. That experiment, they were not thinking of, yeah, it will be success. I don't know. But the more we engaged with them, they said, okay, can this change? I don't know. You tell me. Do you want it to change? So, changing the way, the approach where we made them believe that things can change, or if they tried, things can be different. Obviously, at the end, the challenges we faced. The last slide. The first challenge, our understanding of clinical trials was a challenge for us to understand really how can we really help. Things that happened before us was a challenge. People participation at a time when there were some clinical trials which were at a very critical stage of trial. They were like, can we wait? Can we wait for next month, next 2 months, next 3 months? And like, okay, you can keep dealing. We can't influence it, but they had leadership support because it's at a critical phase. They can't change things right now. They can't change the ways of working. So people availability was a challenge, but eventually over a period of year or a year plus, I think all the study teams started using these guardrails to ways of working. Coming up with new roles and responsibility when the conversation of what's your responsibility in this study team was a key thing, but it's a challenge because people thought, oh, why should I take this additional responsibility? So that was another challenge. Now there were opportunities where we thought, okay, people, they understand experiments, but they had fixed mindset. I don't want to change. I don't want to do something different. I don't want to pick something new. So typical transformation issues that in a software world we face the same issue, though there was no software. it was all people who bring all this resistance, not software. Something that we need to understand. So the key thing, approach matters. And you can take this approach, use it in outside the IT world, outside the software world, and it, you'll find the same problems, same issues, and same challenges. And then, if you have the right mindset to evolve what you know, and not just use it by the book, you will find a way around and help your clients. And that's it. Any questions? That's it. Thank you.